The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Do we have a big show or do we have a big show? Well, let's go with the latter. Welcome to the program as the NCAA gets another slap on the wrist because of the University of Tennessee. We always like to see that NFL Combine balls. Hey, Joe Milton can throw the ball really, really far. Johnny Manziel says he won't take part in the Heisman ceremony until Reggie Bush gets his trophy back. I'm sure that'll affect how they proceed with the pomp and circumstance of the circumstance. Where's Johnny? Oh, we got to get Johnny over here. Oh, you mean Johnny Football? No, I mean Johnny Cocaine. And also the basketball Vols win at Alabama may not be as sexy as a win at Rupp. It may not be as sexy as beating Bruce Pearl at home, but it was absolutely huge. And the way they won it comfortably, making plays down the stretch, we're going to get into it right off the top. I was very impressed. Caleb, how are you, sir?
I am good. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm well. Probably not as well as the basketball Vols, who seem to be playing at a higher level of clip than they typically do under Rick Barnes at this particular moment in time.
Yeah, that was there were that's I'm going to get into it, but to this point, that might be the most impressive win Tennessee's had all year, and it might be the most impressive win of Rick Barnes' tenure as head coach at Tennessee. Well, that was just incredible.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, I thought it's the classic show up, and if you don't show up, you can understand it at least. Like that's kind of the game where it's okay to not show up. But they showed up, and it's time for 4 Downs, and it's brought to you by our friends at Dynasty Pools and Spas. Again, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off.
4 Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all 4 seasons. 4 Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
As Jeremy says, hit the like and subscribe button. Let's go ahead and dive into it. That is a pun intended for the one, the only Cooper Mays. There we go. Be careful, though. Don't dive into a hot tub. What do we do, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right. First down.
Coop here. First down.
Caleb knows basketball as well as anybody in the biz, so I'll just ask him first. What did you think of the win? I said earlier, I thought it was just a really efficient, strong win on the road. Kudos, kudos, kudos. I can't give any more exemplaries than that. How about you?
I mean, the way they won was their two, and I wrote this on Saturday, they won because of their 2 defensive specialists. Let's think about what happened on Saturday, guys. Tennessee was playing a ranked team on the road with everything on the line to win in the SEC. And as you guys know, in college basketball, I don't know why, but playing on the road is a lot more difficult in college basketball than college football. I've never been able to figure that out, but it is. And so they're playing on the road against a ranked team. Both teams have a chance for the SEC title. Dalton Connect, their best player, one is having a bad shooting night. He's 1 of 7 from 3, but he's also in foul trouble. The team as a whole is shooting poorly from 3. They somehow find a way to win. You don't win when that happens. And the reason they won is because the 2 wings stepped up, Josiah Jordan-James and Jemai Mashak. Everybody kept questioning why Josiah Jordan-James is still out there because he had been so poor shooting offensively all year, because he does everything else that doesn't involve scoring. Well, this time his number was called to score, and he did, and Jemai Mashak came off the bench and arguably played his best game ever at Tennessee in the process.
Well, and he's probably Tennessee's most improved player from last year ever. Would you agree with that?
Josiah Jordan-James or Jemai Mashak?
Josiah Jordan-James?
He was better offensively last year, though. It's just that his defense. But
I'm
you're
going to
right.
debate that. I don't think he's asked to do that because of Dalton Connect. I don't think he's asked to do it as often.
That might be true. That's a fair point. You're right. That's a good point. He's become their most versatile. I will give you that. You know what? I could go their most improved in the post because last year Josiah Jordan-James got worked a lot of times playing in the post on defense, and they've played him a lot at the 4 this year, and he's been fine. And so I could get down with that. I mean, the guy had 13 rebounds yesterday and 11 points, and this was just one of those random games where his number was called, and guess what? He went 3 of 6 from 3, hit the 3 that put them ahead, hit the dagger 3 late in the game to put them in control. Jemai Meshack comes off the bench, is 2 of 2 from 3. He hits the 3 to put Tennessee ahead late for good. And then he comes up with the steal to set up Jonas Adu for a bucket right after that. I mean, just little plays like that. That's what you want from your defensive specialist on the wing. That's why they're there. And that's why Tennessee won.
Agreed. Jeremy McDonald's bag should be Chick-fil-A bag. Remind you to hit like and subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate that, Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, Coop, what down is it?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Second down brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports. Get $500 off. Does this team have the clutch gene? There's no right or wrong answer to this. And I've been asking this question for probably 25 years, Caleb, during my broadcast career. We don't really know until it's the final couple of minutes against Charlotte or whoever the case might be, or North Carolina. We don't really know. But if you had to bet, do they have the clutch gene?
I will be able to definitively say that when they play South Carolina this week. But up until this point, my estimation is yes. Because, Dave, they have played 2 straight games that were de facto SEC regular season elimination games, right? To win the SEC regular season title.
Correct.
They were down by 7 in the second half for one and 8 in the second half for the other. They came back and won both of them.
I think that
That's
you
clutch.
and I are, let me ask you this. I think you and I are talking about 2 different clutch genes, which I'm fine with. You're talking about the clutch gene within a game. I'm talking about maybe more maturity. So maybe it was poorly phrased on my part. To go to Alabama and win that when you just beat Bruce Pearl and you're riding high, that was a classic letdown game. And they didn't do that. So whether or not we're talking about clutch that you're talking about.
No, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
I think
we both agree they've got it.
Yeah, they've got it. You're right. That was the level of maturity. It was so easy to let down, but remember, they're playing for these SEC championships. They're playing for the de facto SEC title every single one of these games. And they've won 2, and that makes Wednesday at South Carolina the de facto SEC regular season championship game. And you're right, for them to win in such an emotional way against Bruce Pearl, then go back on the road to beat Alabama. Not only did they beat Alabama, again, Dalton Connect wasn't playing well. By the way, this is another point when we want to talk about Dalton Connect's maturity. Wasn't playing well, wasn't foul trouble, but notice they still gave him the ball at the end of the game, and he was able to get a couple of buckets to make sure that they secured the win.
Yeah, you kind of stole one of my downs, Cooper.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
That's all right. Little Connect. I thought that made it more impressive. And on the message board, Travis agrees. Every time they double DK, the around the horn pass for an open shot is so masterful. How can you stop it? And I'm going to get to Rick Barnes holding a master class over Coach Oats over the weekend. And then the fact that Connect was well defended and the rest of the team beat Alabama was incredible. That by Travis as well. This team can win with very little Connect. And as a matter of fact, I think it's their first option. Is Tennessee's first option to win without leaning on Connect. And then if things don't go well, go the Connect route. I believe that's the case. Caleb, you?
That's exactly how they're set up. They're set up to have a complete offense that runs everything well. And then when it all breaks down, they can go to Connect to score, get him out of a hole. It reminds me of...
It's get the hell out of the way, Michael Jordan style.
Yes,
get
exactly.
The hell out of the way.
The second three-peat Bulls, not the first three-peat, not the first one. That was all Michael Jordan. But the second three-peat Bulls that had Steve Kerr, Tony Kukoc, all those guys, that Bulls team could run a full offense without Michael Jordan on the court. But then Michael Jordan's on the court and is the best player. out there.
I just meant in general, there are certain players, whether it's Larry Bird, I think of Allen Iverson, a really good one-on-one player, whatever the case may be, where they say, guys, you four can go stand next to the coach and I got this. But that's not the way you want to run a basketball offense 99% of the time.
No, it's not. And by the way, Larry Bird was the problem with the Sixers was they couldn't run an offense without Allen Iverson telling everybody to get out of the way.
It was get the hell out of the way from minute 1 to minute 60 was the problem with that group.
Exactly. Whereas like with Bird, you're right. Danny Ainge and Kevin McHale could play an inside-out game. And Larry Bird, without Larry Bird was just a massive. You know who? Actually, here's the best. The best comparison. Remember Mark Aguirre for the Bad Boy Pistons?
I do. A better score than people give him credit for. But you got to bring this back to Dalton Connect. How are you bringing this back to Dalton Connect?
Because the Pistons had a complete team that was all defense and toughness and playing good basketball. And then there's this go-to guy to score when they needed him to, and that was Mark Aguirre consistently. That's Dalton Connect. And by the way, I was proven right again. What happened on Saturday? Dalton Connect has an off game, and who scores double figures again? Who? Everybody? Who did I say was Tennessee's most important player? What was
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Who was it?
Jonas Adu again hits double figures.
It was Jonas Adu. Josiah Jordan James said afterwards, this was a master class in Rick Barnes coaching. Barnes and Oats didn't look like they belonged on the same floor on Saturday. Sorry, fact.
No, they didn't. Nate Oats has a system. Rick Barnes actually coaches.
Exactly. And let me finish that thought in 60 seconds. I want to tell you about Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mentioned Off the Hook Sports. Get $500 off your spa showroom in Athens. They deliver. Caleb finishes that thought on why Barnes is so much better than Oats in 30 seconds. Imagine having the best spas made right here in the United States of America in your backyard. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Their showroom is open in Athens, right off the interstate. You can stop by and check out the best hot tubs and spas in the market. And then delivery, yes, they can do that to Knoxville or Chattanooga. They've got complete support, spa cover, and chemicals to keep your spa bubbling at its best. They also have pool chemicals as well. Dynasty Pools and Spas, amazing discounts for first responders, military, and even some blemish models that can save you a ton, and no one will ever notice. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Go to dynastypoolsandspas.com or stop by that showroom in Athens. dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Finish that thought. This team is better when they don't have to lean on Dalton Connect, I believe is what we were shooting for, correct?
Correct. They are. The thought I was giving was that Rick Barnes, Nate Oats, again, and this is very common in football. How many people do you know in football, Dave? They're coaches that they run a system. So they have like 3 plays in just a system, but they can't actually call play for play. You know what I mean? When they're getting in that situation.
And I don't think it's a negative. That was the triple option for years. So I want to clarify. I don't think everybody's getting thrown under the bus that coached pre-1950s, right?
Right. But like that was the difference between like everybody thought that Steve Spurrier just had a system in the 90s with the fun and gun. It's like, no, Steve Spurrier called play for play, right? He actually had, and I think Rick Barnes can adjust, whereas Nate Oats is, we're going to run tempo and call it a day and see what we can do. That type of offense plays right into Josiah Jordan James and Jemai Mashak's hands. We're talking about 2 6'6" fast elite perimeter defenders who can drop down in the post. This is perfect for them. That's why they were destined to thrive in this game. Also, it does play into Zakai Ziegler's hands, and Zakai Ziegler did a lot of things well. We haven't mentioned him. He did lead the team in scoring over the weekend, but it was so inefficient. I mean, the dude was 5 of 18 from the field, and so, but he did hit 4 threes. So I got to give him his credit, and Zakai was Zakai, but it seemed like just a really inefficient 18 points, didn't it? It didn't seem like Zakai led the team in scoring because he wasn't the best player on the court on Saturday. He wasn't even a top 3 player on the court.
Agree completely. Portions of the program brought to you by our friends at BetUS. 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits. That's 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus the 10% gambling insurance as well. There you go. BetUS, brought to you by our friends at BetUS. That 125% bonus for 3 times, just can't beat it.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
So coming up on the program, we are going to dive into a little bit more of this Nate Oats situation and how Tennessee absolutely outcoached Nate Oats and Rick Barnes. If you want to take the bad with him, which is lack of tournament success, then you have to give him credit for that. So let's dive into Nate Oats right now. First, I want to remind you that portions of the program are brought to you by Boundless Moving. From their 2-hour minimum to turnkey operations, they have you covered. Their motto is personal service without limits, not just a tagline. It's part of who they are. Trust me, they're my mover. It's in their DNA to be personal service without limits. Boundless Moving. Again, Boundless Moving. All right, Nate Oats said before the Tennessee game that Alabama doesn't storm courts, but the Tide had security prepared for court storming in case they beat the Vols. This according to Trey Wallace. Is this being duplicitous, or is this not being on the same page communication-wise, or what do you make of this?
This is Nate Oats trying to, by proxy, pretend that he runs the Alabama football program and he's Nick Saban. Okay, here's his exact quote. We don't storm the court here. We expect to win big games. We've won a lot of big games here. I actually love the fact that our fans are unbelievably great and give us a great environment during the game and then act like we've been there and done that after we beat. Now, we've beaten plenty of good teams in the building since I've been here. I like the way it's done here. And then he goes, now we've done a great job of never storming the court. Like I said, Alabama sports in general expects to win big games. Football's won a bunch of national championships. They've got 5 or 6 different sports that have won national championships. We expect to win around here. Here's what he's saying. Here's what Nate Oats is saying in translation for those who don't get that. Alabama football has a dynasty, and they don't storm the field when we win. And we're adjacent to Alabama football by being Alabama basketball. So I'm basically not Nick Saban now, guys. Okay, this is like that guy. This is like, I forgot who it was. When Michael Jordan's career high game was 69 points, there was another player on the Vols who came out late in the game and hit one bucket. And he asked, what's the greatest moment of your NBA career? He's like, the day me and Michael Jordan scored 71 points together. And that's Nate Oats right here, trying to, by proxy, pretend that he's running something similar to the Alabama football program when he's never even made a Final Four.
I wonder how much there is a power vacuum there in the athletic department about who has more pull. I mean, this is the time, if you're the basketball men's coach or the basketball women's coach or the softball coach or whoever, that you're probably trying to buy for a little bit more practice time or workout time in the facility where the football team always got that. You're trying to get a little bit more leverage than you had before. I'm going, though, to defend Nate Oats on this, even though you know that I think he's a goofball and I think the gun charge with Brandon Miller was handled very poorly. I'm not a Nate Oats guy, but I'm going to defend him. I think the administration probably put extra security in place. I don't think they would have charged the court had it been Tennessee, because you're talking about a top 25 team. So I can't believe you put me in position, Caleb, and I'll never love you like I once did because of that. I'm defending Nate Oats. Thanks a lot, Caleb Calhoun, and taking away my integrity and to some extent my manhood on this Monday because I'm defending Nate Oats. That's me.
Wait. You don't think Alabama fans would have stormed the court if they beat Tennessee on Saturday?
I don't. And I knew you were going to pick that out, and I'm kind of going back and forth, but I don't think they would have unless it would have been some sort of buzzer beater crazy finish.
I think you're insane. They had extra security for that reason. They were preparing for court storming. Look, credit for extra security. You and I know how we feel about court storming. By the way, that Kyle Filipowski, talk about a heck of a recovery, right? Did you see that 360 dunk he did over the weekend? I mean, for Duke, it's he sprained his ankle and was severely injured when
wait. So you're losing some people here. We said that if Dalton Connect was at Duke, that he would be the biggest superstar in college basketball, and I'm just telling you, it's not close. Filipowski, who you mentioned, supposedly turned his ankle when he got charged and flopped. That's the first time I've seen a guy flop over a fan. Dalton Connect would be the guy that would stop another fan and say, would you like me to autograph my jersey for you and give it to you? That's the way he is. I'm telling you guys, we're going to have, and by the way, Hooker's Corner makes a big comeback in March. Not that we didn't have a fantastic February. We were able to give away the Hendon Hooker autograph helmet that you see above me if you're on YouTube. We're going to have the Dalton Connect piece of memorabilia. I'm working on that today, so that's going to be awesome. But Dalton Connect doesn't have to be that player that is involved all the time, which has to be for Nate Oats. Again, I'm defending Nate Oats. It has to be frustrating to get ready for a game to say, do I stop Super Score or do I try to stop everybody else and let Super Score have his 39? Philosophically, now every player is different. I wouldn't say that about Michael Jordan, but philosophically, I'm usually let the star player have his and control everybody else. Philosophically, Caleb, in general, I'm not sure yet how I feel about Dalton Connect after some of the deep threes he hit and the way he took the ball to the rack on a couple of occasions. He might be in my category of, no, he's too scary to let him have his.
That whole philosophy just really depends on how the rest of the team is structured, quite honestly. And I just think Tennessee is good enough. I mean, I think of, and that's where I say philosophically, I don't know. I actually do think you let Dalton get his and you take Adu and take the interior presence out of the game if you can. But, I mean, look, the reason I wanted to bring this up is just Nate Oats was trying to take a shot at Tennessee for storming the field when they beat Alabama 2 years ago. That's what he was trying to do.
Oh, so you're going that far. Conspiracy. Caleb on the program each and every weekday at 10 a.m. I love it.
Nate Oats was trying to send a message to say we're at a higher level than Tennessee. And we don't do embarrassing things like storm the quarter field the way Tennessee does. Now, again, I want to preface, Dave and I both agree we don't like court and field storming, and something should be done about it. However, the narrative that's been coming from the people who say things about it is what's annoying me. Because Jay Billis is full of you-know-what when he says he doesn't care that he's against court storming. The guy's been cheerleading Duke storming the court for years. Okay, so he's just mad that they stormed the court against Duke. And so that's what bothers me. Nate Oats, I don't think cares. I think Nate Oats is trying to, by proxy, affiliate himself with the Alabama football program. And he tried to take a subtle dig at Tennessee by saying they're the types that storm the court and field when they win. We don't do that here. We're just natural winners and we expect to win. And I think that's what all of that was about. I think, to his credit, maybe he tried to get in Tennessee's heads and maybe give them an inferiority complex before the game. I don't think it worked. It clearly didn't work. They're too mature for that. But I could see him maybe playing a little gamesmanship in that way.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe some gamesmanship, perhaps. We'll see. I look at Nate Oats, and I think he's a good X's and O's coach, but man, Rick Barnes ran masterclass on him. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that to this point. Turn your notifications on. We are super excited to announce a new member of the program, and Jimmy Heim's appearance from now on will be brought to you by our good friend at Ray Varner Ford. I've got some more thoughts here coming up on Nate Oats. First, a quick 15 seconds from our good friend Ray Varner Ford.
23 F-150 4x4 Super Cab, $44,992. A 2023 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $30,952. 2023 F-150 4x4 Super Crew XLT, $54,900. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Where does Nate Oats rank among the top coaches in the SEC right now, Caleb?
All right, so
Calipari's a weird one, but I think you have to give it to Calipari, right?
You have to make him number one. He's the only one with the national championship in the conference. Right. So Calipari, Barnes, and Bruce Pearl are like in the 2 and 3 because they both have made a Final Four. So I'll have those two in there. I've got Nate Oats in there with like Eric Musselman, like just below them, but I still think a good coach. And now Lamont Paris is entering that realm because, I mean, that guy's SEC Coach of the Year, regardless of what happens on Wednesday. But yeah, so Nate Oats is top 4. I'll have him 4th. I'll have him ahead of Eric Musselman and ahead of Lamont Paris because he has accomplished more. So You could make a case for him today above a Barnes or Pearl, but the accomplishments of Barnes and Pearl put them ahead, because I get what you're saying with the masterclass of coaching on Saturday. Dave, I think a lot of that has to do with, I don't know, that is a reflection on Barnes, but not in the way you think. It's not a reflection on Barnes' X's and O's. It's a reflection on how well Barnes developed talent over the years. And this Tennessee team, so many of them have been coached up under Barnes. They play so maturely on the court.
So it truly is a master's class because he's put in the work to get to this point. It's not a bachelor's level class, huh?
Well played. Well, I mean, Josiah Jordan-James and Santiago Vescovi are basically master students at this point because they are in that extra COVID year. But I've always said this with Barnes. I felt Barnes should never go the one and done route with players because Barnes has a system that really develops you really, really well. And it kind of holds you back with one and dones.
Let me take a quick timeout. I agree with you, but you're not going to turn down a Dalton Connect if you run across a guy from northern Colorado that happens
that's different. Dalton Connect is a fifth-year senior who has already been coached at the college level for a while.
Right.
It's easier to mold him into a system than a one-and-done guy.
When you say one, I'm sorry, I was thinking as one and done as also 1 year transfer and done. My bad.
No, yeah, there's a difference between a 1 year transfer and done and a one and done freshman who knows he's going to the NBA. Rick Barnes is not great with handling those guys. He's very, very good with handling he's the guy that turns a 3-star into a 4-star or turns a 4-star into a 5-star after 2 or 3 years.
Okay, you know what you're rooting? Are there any SEC games today?
No, there's no SEC games today.
Right. So you don't really have anybody to root for, and there's no big, huge, monstrous recruiting news coming down the pike. Based off what I've been told, things could change in a heartbeat. You know what you're rooting for today? If you're a Tennessee fan, you don't really have anything to root for because I don't know. The golf team might be in action, beats me, tennis, I don't know. But you're rooting that Rick Barnes takes it easy on his players in practice today. Yes, that's what you're rooting.
Do you think they have enough in the tank to just give it their all for one more game at South Carolina on Wednesday?
Well, no, I think just in practice, you're taking your foot off the gas so they're fresher for the rest of the week and the rest of the March run.
Fair enough. Okay, the rest of the week.
And you and I have had this big philosophical discussion. We both agree on it. He needs to take his foot off the gas and not be nose to nose with a player in early March. And that's what's happening on this basketball program.
I agree with you after Wednesday, but regular season title counts for a banner. That matters to me.
But I don't mean you take it any lighter. I really don't. Like I would have taken my foot off the gas like a week ago, with 2 weeks in the regular season, just a little. I'm talking about 90-minute practices. I'm talking about 75-minute practices instead of 90-minute practices. How about that? I'm not talking about everybody gets the day off.
Okay, I'm just. Do you think that 75 versus 90-minute practice? Do you think it helps or hurts Tennessee for Wednesday's game?
I think they need to freshen up. I think they still looked fatigued on Saturday, even though they won.
Well, Zakai definitely does because, again, Zakai is playing too many minutes. I'm going to pull up the number of minutes he played on Saturday, but this is a big problem because this is going to continue to be a problem for Tennessee. Zakai played 38 minutes on Saturday. I mean, you're seeing Zakai fade a little bit. He's got to get more rest. So I agree with you, but I think you go all in for Wednesday. Look, y'all can hate me. Your granddad or great granddad might disagree with me on this. I don't care. Wednesday's more important than Saturday. Tennessee hosts Kentucky on Saturday. Wednesday's 1,000 times more important. If you have to choose to win one and lose the other, you win on Wednesday and lose on Saturday.
Okay, I want to make sure that we're not disagreeing when I'm pretty sure we're not disagreeing. I'm not saying I wouldn't take the game lightly. I'm just saying you don't have to practice. You don't have to run somebody into the ground on a Monday or Tuesday. That's all.
Okay, fair enough. I would say this. If doing that means you'll win Wednesday but guarantees you a loss on Saturday, do it. Do it. I don't care about Saturday if you win on Wednesday.
Those are very hypothetical. Check out our friends at TristarHatsCo.com, TristarHatsCo.com. Use the promo code HOOKED, and you will get 10% off. Use the promo code HOOKED with 10% off. You see it on your screen if you're on YouTube. They've got all kinds of fantastic hats and shirts and apparel. You will love TristarHatsCo.com. Use the promo code HOOKED. Get 10% off. Support our sponsors. That's why we are here. So stay tuned. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. In just about, how about 2 quick minutes? We're going to get into the NCAA says, here's what I'm going to do with these NCAA investigations that we got going. All that stuff that we put all these man hours into. Let's just take a break on that. 2 minutes. The NCAA is still insane with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun at cctis.com.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air. Dare to compare.
We believe every day is a good day to be thirsty. With free samples on draft and lots of flavors to choose from, Tennessee Cider Company prepares a hard cider that's easy to enjoy. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. The area of Gatlinburg has so much to offer, and so does Tennessee Cider Company. Add us to your list for shopping and fun experiences. You'll be glad you made the trip. Find our cidery in the Mountain Mall on the Gatlinburg Parkway. Sip smart. Sip the good stuff. Sip Tennessee Cider Company. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
Crazy. The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Who?
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Caleb, let me know when we got this day in Tennessee sports history, and we'll get to that here momentarily. I told you about TristarHatsCo.com on the other side. I want to remind you, look at my embroidery, TristarHatsCo.com, and I'm going to have my Off the Hook sports memorabilia coming up. I got some stuff to send Caleb, so we're so excited about working with Apex Apparel Group Design. Apex Apparel, call Tyler, 865-919-3001. The number's right below, 865-919-3001. Apex. All you have to do is mention Off the Hook Sports, and you get 15% off your first order. Spirit wear for a school or group, a one-stop shop for all of your products. They will take care of you. Then the NCAA says, I'm kind of good. I'm just going to stop doing stuff.
Say when.
Yes, we'll say when. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The NCAA says they're halting all investigations. This is clearly tied to Tennessee beating them in court, the state of Tennessee, the state of Virginia. What investigation can you possibly move forward with when it comes to NIL or payment of players? Caleb, there is absolutely nothing that you can do. because you don't know what the rules are. And it appears as if the rules are there are no rules. Your thoughts brought to you by Don Self, your State Farm agent in the Chattanooga area. Caleb?
I'm sorry. I was dying when I saw this because this is when I'm going to say vague real quick, but this is the classic case of someone threatens to do something to you. They realize they can't do something to you because you fight back and like, there's no way you can do that. And then they say, well, I've decided I won't do this to you after all. Well, you don't have the choice to do this to me after all. I'm going to just give you guys a quick story. Where a small town newspaper I used to work at in Western Maryland, there was a crazy local politician who came at our paper and said, if you guys use my name in the paper, I will sue you for defamation. Well, we're allowed to use your name. Sorry, bro. So like we ran a huge op-ed, like using his name as much as possible. And then he comes out the next day and says, I've decided not to sue for defamation. You never had the chance to sue for defamation. So the NCAA coming out saying, well, guys, we're not going to do any NIL investigations right now. You mean the thing you're not allowed to do right now because the courts said you can't do it? This is them trying to pretend that they still have some sort of authority, Dave, and it's hilarious to watch. And the funniest thing is, it's them being too late again because they do this after they lost their case or got the TRO granted against Tennessee. They should have done this the minute they knew they were going to lose in court.
It speaks to the tone-deaf nature of the NCAA because you don't need to make this statement that you're going to come out and you're going to put all investigations on pause. You don't need to leak this to the media whatsoever because you look like a big goofball. Here's the other reason why they look like a big goofball is we're just talking about NIL, but how about other investigations? Brought to you by Don Self. Don Self in Chattanooga is your State Farm agent in the Chattanooga, Ottawa, and Collegedale area. Call 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126, or go to donself.net. That's donself.net. So are they not doing investigations on academic fraud? Are they not doing investigations on anything? Are they just hanging it up, closing the investigation department?
No, they're stopping investigations into third-party deals with athletes, which is basically NIL.
Okay, but let me explain to you how poorly of a business this is run. And I can't remember if you and I were working together at the time or not. Did you know the NCAA in the beginning of the 2023 calendar year hired about 40 more enforcement agents? Were you aware of that?
I actually did know that.
Okay, so that took them up to like 47 because they had 7 for all of the NCAA, which is a stupid number. How in the world you could have single digits for 121 Division I football teams, 300 in other sports such as basketball, but they had 7. What's in the box? No, not that movie. They had 7. So they up it to 47. Well, what are these other 40 dudes going to do? Because gals, dudes, you know that they were hired to look into this NIL payment, and the NCAA was going to get control. So these 40 people have put their careers on the line working for the NCAA. And I hate to tell you, but you're going to be lucky if you have a job by the end of the year.
Yeah. Yes. I mean,
and I really am sorry. You talked about this yesterday. We don't want anybody, a regular Joe making $60,000, $70,000 a year to lose their job. But we're not talking about those guys. We are talking about those guys. We're not talking about the guys making $300,000 that we don't really care.
Oh, I agree. And what people need to understand about this is, even if you hate an institution, and again, you can hate some government institutions, some media, the NCAA, whatever. When layoffs happen at those
excuse me, IRS. Go ahead.
When people are laid off at those institutions, they're not the people responsible for the things you hate about those institutions.
Exactly.
They are your regular day workers who just go in, clock in, just try to put food on the table. So like when you laugh, like say you hate ESPN and you laugh about the ESPN layoffs, the people who you hate for ESPN being what it is are not the ones who are being laid off. They are average, regular people going to work, trying to provide for their family every day. And it's never good when those people lose their jobs. And
except for like a Trey Wingo, he was making like $7 million his last year.
Oh yes, that's true. Actually, ESPN's a bad example because they did fire some high-profile people. ESPN off the board.
$7 million though for a Trey Wingo.
Put it this way:
I'm gonna trade down, and I'll take 3 Stan Hills and a 4th round pick.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so put it this way: last year, the New York Times and Fox News had a bunch of layoffs. Okay, different sides of the political spectrum, whether or not you like either of those outlets, right?
Yes.
And both sides were cheerleading the layoff of the opposite side. Guys, the people laid off were not the people you hate from those networks, where however you land politically or media outlets. They were regular, everyday people just trying to collect a check and do a job. Okay.
Agreed.
And you're hating and if you laugh at the NCAA, we all laugh at them. The people that are running it are terrible. But the victims of this are not going to be the at this round are not going to be the upper management. It's going to be the day workers that are not responsible for the incompetence of the NCAA. They're just hired to keep the ship going, and they're the ones who work in the doldrums of the ship that just try to keep it moving. They're not the ones driving it into the iceberg. Put it that way.
Exactly. How do Vols finish the season? That's our poll question. And it's brought to you by our friends at the Hemp House. Beat Kentucky and South Carolina, gets 71% of the vote. Lose one of those games, gets 27% of the vote. Lose both, gets 2% of the vote. Lose both is the only way that I could consider this stretch run to not be a success. If they go 3-1 in the stretch run, I'm not going to tell you after Kentucky, if they were to beat South Carolina, lose Kentucky, that, oh, they lost to Kentucky, that's bad. I know. 3-1 in this run against 4, correct me if I'm wrong, top 15 ranked teams.
Yes, top 15, yes.
When you played them, by the way, can you check and see if we have the rankings out yet? I was kind of wondering where Tennessee might pop up to. Portions of the program brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for a 10% off credit. Promo code HOOKED for 10% off. So do we have Tennessee in the ratings yet? I thought there was a pretty good chance they might.
No, rankings aren't out yet, so they're still number 4.
Who lost ahead of them?
I'm not sure anybody lost ahead of them over the weekend. Purdue, UConn, and Houston all played. Houston has not lost ahead of them.
You ready for my? Are you ready for my Michigan prediction? You remember I was the one that told you not to pat myself on the back. I broke my arm, but I told you in September that I thought Michigan was the best football team. Now I'm late to the party on this. I think Houston's going to win it all. I think they're the best basketball team out there.
Really? You think Houston is the best basketball team?
I do. They got that big guy, and they got guards that can shoot. I got dumped by a short brunette when I was a sophomore in high school, so I've always found short brunettes to be attractive. So maybe it's because I like the way that this Houston offense is built with a big man in the middle and lots of shooters on the outside. Is that a reach for a comparison? But that is, I just like this offense. I like the way it's built. It does remind me, though, of the way that, can I change gears and bring up something about basketball for half a second? I had somebody bring this up to me. He said, Dave, I'm telling you, Vescovi, it's not just his competence off the court, which it could have been with his grandmother passing away. He said Santiago Vescovi is not able to come off picks in this new offense that goes inside and outside. Now, this guy knows basketball really, really well. I'm not ashamed to admit Caleb knows basketball better than me. What did you think of that assessment before we get on to some NFL combine numbers? And this just in, some guy named Joe can throw the ball really far. What did you think of that comparison he made that Vescovi maybe just isn't as good of a fit for the offense and its variations this year?
That's interesting. I mean, Vescovi was much more of a fit for a standard vanilla inside out offense where he's just a catch and shoot type of guy.
Well, I mean, he needs to, this guy's argument, he needs to run off a lot of picks on the perimeter, which they're not doing as much.
Okay.
He can't he can't get his own shot.
That's not surprising. I could see that. And I mean, that's, that's kind of, it really, he probably should have come out last year, right? It really exposed his draft stock.
Maybe,
honestly.
maybe we do this, do this tomorrow. I mean, maybe Vescovi, where does he rank on most valuable players heading into the tournament on this team? Would we have ever said 6th or 7th before the year started?
Even that? Is he even there? I mean, Sakai, Josiah, Jonas, Dalton, off the bench, Jamai. That's 5. And then are Toby and Jordan Gainey more valuable? I mean, I don't think he's. I think he's more valuable than Gainey, but maybe not Toby. But as far as the rest of the season goes, I get what you're saying. 3 out of 4. If there's a good chance if Tennessee wins both this weekend. By the way, if they win on Wednesday, they have a great chance of winning on Saturday. But they really not just to win the SEC. The biggest reason they need to win on Wednesday is Kentucky's figured it out. I don't know if you noticed that, but they're really hitting their stride right now, and they're going to be very dangerous in March. So I think it's more important to win Wednesday to get the 3 out of 4. But it will be interesting to see how that all plays out going forward.
All right. So our final poll question for the first half of the program is: how do Vols finish the season? Beat Kentucky and South Carolina, get 73%. Lose one game, 25%. Lose both, gets 1%. So we're going to change that up. Best VL in the NFL. We're going to say Kamal Hadden, and we're going to say Joe Milton, and then we're going to add to that list. Who are we adding to that list?
Jalen Wright. Who is the best VFL at the NFL Combine?
There's no question. And we probably underestimated him. Best VFL in the NFL. Now, Jalen Wright ran a 4.39 40, is that right?
4.38.
4.38. We underestimated him as a running back. That's the type of power and speed that punishes defense and makes them not want to make tackles late in games. I'm not saying that Tennessee's going to be without any pop on offense when they run the football, but Jalen Wright was underestimated. We would like for you to vote on the poll question that is on YouTube right now. Best VFL in the NFL: Joe Milton, Kamal Hadden, and Jalen Wright. Now, you have to factor into that Jalen Wright plays running back, okay? That he's not probably going to have a 15-year career. So when you vote for that, be mindful of that. Joe Milton could hold a clipboard for 18 years. But let's start with the weekend that Jalen Wright had, in which he looked like he was shot out of an absolute cannon. Powerful runner. He's the guy that if I'm an NFL GM, I'm dreaming of, because of the position he plays, he slides to the 3rd or 4th round. What did you think, Caleb?
Yes, Jalen Wright he was the star running back of the weekend. And here's why. He's a 4.38 40 guy, meaning he's an all-purpose back, but he is physical. We watched him this past year. He was the feature back for Tennessee.
This is not Marshall Faulk. This is not a scat back.
No, not a scat back at all. This is something we kind of wish we saw in 2022, and it's kind of unfortunate when you look back. Remember, Jalen Wright battled injuries in 2022 a lot, so Jabari Small was more the starter that year.
Yes.
And could you imagine if it was Jalen Wright and Hendon Hooker back there together, what that offense could have been and just how elite they could have been? And
that's pretty good stuff. Brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, strict standards to ensure you receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. Hemp House chat with 2Ts.com. Yeah, they'd have had a lot more pop, because I don't want to have recency bias or throw back off Jabari Small when I thought he was good. He just didn't have the pop out of the backfield that Jalen Wright has. Even in retrospect, Jabari Small, I don't know if he runs a sub 4.5 40. I'm sure he's probably in the 4.4 range, I would think. But that's a full stride slower than Jalen Wright.
It is. And Jalen Wright this year was everything Jabari Small was with that speed. And so he was clearly the better back. And remember, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. We're going to get to him, but the offense was severely limited as it was with Joe Milton. And so they couldn't run if you guys don't, Heupel's offense, the vertical rushing attack is crucial, and it only works if the quarterback is a threat to spread on those deep balls and those passes over the middle, of which Joe Milton was not. And so Wright did not have as much room to work with most of the time. Not to mention Cooper Mays was hurt for part of the year, which is the most crucial player when it comes to run blocking out there. So the combination of and then Javonte Spraggins got hurt at the end of the year. So Cooper Mays and Javonte Spraggins both got hurt. The two key pieces of the interior run blocking. Joe Milton couldn't spread the offense the way Hendon Hooker could. And then Wright, because of Heupel's philosophy, had to split more time with small than you would typically want somebody to. All of that limited exactly how great he could have been for Tennessee last year.
Can we have a little fun here for a second? Because we know that the running back position is not what it once was, right? So I'm not going to throw out an O.J. Simpson or an Eric Dickerson or somebody that's monumentally great. But let me throw out some running backs who recently would have been considered better than Jalen Wright and ask you this question. Dylan Sampson better than Jalen Wright? I'm going to go first on that.
That's crazy.
Dylan Sampson's better than Jalen Wright.
Dylan Sampson's not better than Jalen Wright by any stretch of the imagination at all.
Agreed. All right. Jahmyr Gibbs.
Hey now.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Like Jahmyr Gibbs is proven, but like I could see Jalen Wright being better. I wouldn't be shocked if he's better in the NFL.
I wouldn't either. I think it depends what you want. Do you want some power between the tackles, or do you want Gibbs, who can maybe do a little bit more things on the outside? Any tailback that I'm missing that people have raved over, and can we compare him to Jalen Wright's? Because I'm telling you, I think Daniel's right. I think his 5-yard speed was overlooked. I agree with a lot of these guys. Before we get to Milton and Haddon, anything else you want to say about Jalen Wright?
Christian McCaffrey. Let's go Christian McCaffrey.
Okay. Christian McCaffrey, better, but way, way different, right?
Yeah. But he's still somewhat of a scat back, to be fair.
But Jalen's not a scat back.
Right. He's not.
Okay.
What about just previous player in there, Alvin Kamara? We kept comparing Dylan Sampson to Alvin Kamara. Maybe Jalen Wright's the Alvin Kamara.
More between the tackle guy, in my opinion. Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler looking for affordable game day jewelry. How about the Fire Opals? Tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you. The Fire Opals are awesome. A Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Tell them Off the Hook Sports sent you. Support our sponsors. That's why we're here. And then Joe Milton, arm strength, improved accuracy. Kind of. I watched him throw. He threw a very limited number of passes. If I were his agent, I wouldn't have let him throw at all. But he did throw, and he was fine. They were ones. They weren't even team drills. So basically, Joe Milton will go. His round will be determined by 2 or 3 rounds at the pro day when he throws to Tennessee's current players, and he had better complete pretty much every one of those passes, because when you compete in a pro day with your own players at your own field, you're expected to complete 100%, not 99.9%, but it puts more pressure on Joe Milton for the pro day. But I don't think he had a choice. I don't think if he would have gone out there and shown off his accuracy by a full round of throwing, that would have helped his case. So I don't really think he had a choice. I think he had to put it on the pro day, and I think he needs to do a lot of work with the Jacob Warrens of the world and the McAllen Castles of the world and the Ramel Keatons of the world, and make sure that they look like first-round skill position players, because we all know that Joe Milton has his, let's say, limitations.
Joe Milton is the Washington Commanders of individual NFL players. And Dave knows where I'm going for this. For those who don't know.
Not really. No, it's the funny part is I don't.
Okay. During the Dan Snyder years, because Dan Snyder is one of the most unintelligent people to ever do anything, Dan Snyder would open up the checkbook for the most splash free agent signing possible. Remember this, Dave? Deion Sanders in 1999 when he first got there. Opened up the checkbook for a aging turf toe ridden Deion Sanders who was nowhere near what he was anymore. Albert Hainsworth gave Albert Hainsworth $100 million to play in a defensive system that wasn't even a fit for him. Then, I mean, this was Dan Snyder's whole career as owner of Washington. He would open up the checkbook every single year for the biggest free agent on the market and sacrifice the rest of the team. Every Washington fan would be like, look at the team we have. Look at the player we got. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. They were the all-season champions every year. Joe Milton is the all-season champion of individual talent because he struggles in the regular season, and then he starts doing practice stuff in the all-season, whether it's camps or combines, and we're like, man, this guy's amazing. Here's why Joe Milton won from the NFL Combine over the weekend. You know, GMs fell in love with his arm because scouts can't help themselves. They fall in love with Joe Milton's arm. I told you guys this, the same way they fall in love with the hot, toxic girl at the bar, okay? Sometimes you just can't resist.
I think there's some sobriety that's hit some of these scouts, but I still agree with you 80%.
Yes. So that's a good one.
I think some people say, you know, I haven't had enough beer goggles to find that person attractive.
But here's what they do.
I do think that 80% of the scouts are on the same page as you.
They make an excuse in their head on why they look. So the rule is in the NFL, they look for reasons not to draft you.
Well, you know what my scout told me about Joe Milton, about the excuse in his head. It's footwork. It's footwork.
Okay.
And that Josh Heupel teaches a certain type of footwork where you can read half the field. If you're watching on our video platform on YouTube, then you're seeing me doing like a football move that doesn't look real great. But you're basically reading one half of the field. So that hurt Hendon Hooker as well. And it'll continue to hurt quarterbacks. Not to say they can't overcome it, but that's his footwork. So a scout's going to look at that and say, I can fix that. And if you can fix that, then you're going to have a really good NFL quarterback. I just don't know that you can.
That's where I'm going with this, is that traditionally in the NFL, they look for reasons not to draft you. Is that fair to say? They look for reasons why they shouldn't draft you before they look for reasons why they should.
Yes, agreed.
When it comes to quarterbacks with big arms, they do the opposite. They look for reasons why they should. Joe Milton was semi-competent, apparently, on the short intermediate passes over the weekend. And then that wasn't enough for a scout to say, okay, he's not as bad as we thought. We could work with this, and we could work with the footwork, like you said, so we'll take him.
Oh, listen, I love to gamble, but when at card games, not gambling as much as sports, but when I figure a game out, it kind of gets boring. So, Caleb, I know the play to make in blackjack. I know whether or not you should hit or not. I've read the book, learned the rules, moved on to craps because it's a little bit more volatile. Joe Milton's craps, because you could get down and you could start playing in the middle of a heater, is what they're called, and you could walk away from the table with 10 grand after a $200 investment. You could also lose your $200 in 3.5 minutes. So that's kind of what Joe Milton is. Out of the group, I'm going to stand by. Kamal Hadden is going to have the longest NFL career and will be deemed the most successful out of these three guys. Call me crazy if you would like.
I'm with you. Kamal Hadden is he's a number 2 cornerback. He's not going to be able to be like he's never going to be able to guard like those elite, like, the Calvin Johnson type receivers. That's not going to be Kamal Hadden's thing, but he will always be able to guard the other guy. And that's where he's going to thrive.
And remember now, there's room for 3 of those guys in each starting NFL lineup because you have 3 guys that are essentially defensive backs. Nowadays, the nickel back has taken place of the outside linebacker to some extent. So you have more opportunity for Hadden as well.
That is true. I always told people Nickelback would make a comeback in the 2010s and people would realize how great they are. And
when I get occasionally when I get my 90s playlist, like I'm hitting the gym and that comes on, that's a big downer. Hit that like and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate that. So you would
Kamal Hadden was limited. So just wanted to point that out over at the combine but he did. They were impressed by how smooth he was at the actual on-field drills. He didn't do the physical measurables, but they were impressed by how smooth he was at the on-field drills with his footwork.
Okay. Which of the 3 would you draft first? It's a supplemental draft. So like the round, you remember how the old supplemental draft worked?
I know how it worked. I was too young when it happened, so I can't remember.
You would have a pick in April. Well, no. It was like June. But then, like, if you used a first round pick, it counted off next year's first round pick. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So you actually used your pick for the next year. So you've got these three guys sitting on the board. You are using what round in what order for these three guys? I'll go ahead and tell you. I'm taking Haddon 4. I'm assuming they'll be there, okay, which they might not be. Wright 4. Aren't we just doing an NFL draft projection now at this point? And then I would take Joe Milton 7th.
So
That's
much
what
of
I
this.
would take them. So I guess it's not a projection. It's my projection, right?
So much of this depends on who does the draft class value, because half the draft is you may love somebody, but you base it on, oh, do these other teams like him? And if they don't like him, we can wait to pick him and draft him. So you guys should, I don't know if you guys know, the Patriots always loved Tom Brady, but the reason they waited so long to draft him is because they knew he was falling late in the rounds. But then they actually took their mind off him because they were shocked he wasn't taken by the 6th round. They were shocked he was still available at that point. So that's kind of an interesting tidbit of the Patriots. So I think, yeah, I'll draft Kamal Haddon first, even though I think Jalen Wright, in terms of rare talent above the rest of the players at their position, I think Jalen Wright stands out the most.
Give me 4 years. I'm taking Jalen Wright, and it's not close.
Well, then I'm taking Jalen Wright.
Give me 8 years, and I'm taking Kamal Haddon, and it's close. If you want to vote in our poll question, best BFL in the NFL will be Joe Milton, Kamal Haddon, Jalen Wright. Wright, 88% of the vote. Haddon, 12% of the vote. Milton, no vote.
Milton.
The age?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm in that realm. I'm going Jalen Wright, Dave, because I'm just going to say it to you. I am a very big win now guy in the NFL. I don't believe in like betting for the future, and if I would take the greater 4 years over the more stable 8 years, always. I go for win now, 100% of the time.
So what does Tennessee's quarterback room look like now with Joe Milton gone? It's okay. There's some Nico guy. I think the show represented by Banks and Jones. Let's dive into the quarterback room. Thanks to our friend Josh Ward, who has that story up on Off the Hook Sports. Now the show represented by Banks and Jones. Tell me about it, T. Scott. Why Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. Vols don't have to settle for a quarterback after Joe Milton departs for the NFL. I wonder at what point this was Nico Maleava's job, Caleb Calhoun. At what point Josh Heupel said, that really is my guy. He's on campus now, and I believe in him. And whether it's for a Citrus Bowl, the 2024 season, whenever the case may be, 2023 perhaps, that is my guy. I've been told by everybody it happens soon when he arrived on campus. Let's do a position preview of Tennessee and their quarterback position. This is an ongoing series brought to you by offthehooksports.com. Hit that like and subscribe button. Will get you completely previewed with the upcoming spring football practice. It's just a couple of weeks away. So when do you think Nico won Josh Heupel over?
Nico, well, I think he won him over in high school. That's why Josh Heupel encouraged the collective to drop $8 million on this guy. But
very fair. That's fair.
Nico won everybody over his first week of practice. And guys, remember, his first week of practice was December of 2022. Taven Jackson hit the portal before winter practices even ended. And Taven Jackson was Josh Heupel's first true commit at quarterback out of high school. The guy was a 4-star. And he said, I'm out. No way I'm beating this guy. And so he peaced out within a week of Nico showing up on campus. I think everybody has known in that room that Nico was going to be a star since December of 2022. And I think I think there was a conditioning factor to get him fully healthy. There was a team chemistry factor, and that's why they stuck with Milton last year. And I will give Dave this, because Dave was, and a lot of other people drove the Nico train the whole time. I don't think it would have been any worse with Nico last year. I can't say they would have won any games with Nico last year. Dave and I disagree on that, but they absolutely still would have at least gone 8-4.
And only slightly. I mean, we only slightly disagree. I mean, listen, without Cooper, you're fighting an uphill battle. We learned at Florida, so I'm not saying I vehemently disagree with you. I think the question is, he won over Josh Heupel in recruiting, you're right, but the question is, when did he win over his teammates? And the ball report with Cooper Mays and Jacob Warren, we were able to get some insight into that, and that's why we want you to have those notifications on and hit that like and subscribe button, because we've got a new, very, very special guest that's going to be part of the ball report coming up. We'll continue to work with Cooper Mays, but we got a little insight as to how he came in. And the thing that was told to me by somebody within Tennessee's football program, it was told to me he is definitely good enough where Joe had better take notice. And that was in January of 2023. So I think he was definitely good enough where Tennessee may have slipped up at some point last year, again, had it not been for the fact that Joe Milton said, this guy's really good. I don't want to screw up my senior year.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I remember you told me I hadn't just started on the show, but we were really kind of getting our new format off the ground last year. And you had said that everything you had heard was Joe Milton got kicked into high gear from two things. One was seeing Anthony Richardson being highly touted in the draft, going high. And then the other was Nico was really threatening him the minute he stepped on campus in December. And so I agree. That was huge. And now that it's obvious he's the star, I'm going to say something crazy. I don't think you're going to see much of him in spring ball, guys. I think in the spring game, Josh Heupel, he didn't want a spring game. He didn't want to show you what he really has in Nico. And Josh Ward brings up some of Greg McElroy, does a great job, guys. Read the article. He does an incredible job on the article. He brings up what Greg McElroy said, some of the areas Nico needs to improve on. I'm just going to tell you guys, Greg McElroy's wrong with what he said.
Oftentimes.
So he said that Nico was too quick to take off and didn't hold onto the ball long enough in the pocket in the Iowa game in the Citrus Bowl.
Okay, I'm going to defend Greg McElroy for a second. If he added the caveat that it was just the Citrus Bowl, that's fine. But to make a broad generalization about his play would be unfair. Did he do that?
That basically was what he said. That's what he said he needs to improve on as a player.
Okay.
And by the way, anybody who watched that game knows that was by design for Nico to do that. Okay. Because he needed to, because of the way Iowa played and the coverage they played. Sorry.
I don't call out media members, but he and I seem to be watching a different game. I don't.
Do you remember the two plays where Nico went through all four progressions?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I don't like naming people, but the guy you're referring to and I, for at least 20 years, have been watching different games. Portions of the program brought to you by I'm watching football, I think. Maybe I've got it.
You know what? I'm just going to say it.
Maybe I've got it on the wrong channel every night or every day, Caleb.
I'm just going to say it. I think he saw Nico's stat line and saw how many times he ran. And that's what I'm going to say.
Well, maybe. The thing that Nico is going to be fairly criticized for is not running sooner, because he's going to want to stay behind the line of scrimmage and look downfield. And that's the same thing that Bryce Young was criticized for before. He's not going to come out of the chute and be perfect, so don't expect that portion.
But it's not Caleb Williams who holds on to the ball too long. Sorry, keep going.
Exactly, because Caleb doesn't get out of the pocket enough.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, Nico may hold on to the ball too long at times, but it's because he's looking downfield and he's probably out of the pocket. Think Bryce Young, 2021. Portions of the program brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia, daily updates. Go to facebook.com and follow at Sports Treasures TN. That's Sports Treasures TN. And we will have a brand new announcement probably as soon as tomorrow on our big gift for March. We were able to give away to Steven, I believe, won the Hendon Hooker autographed helmet. All you have to do is become a John, join our Patreon group. We'll have all kinds of exclusive content on there later today. So this is a preview, and Josh Ward is writing these series on offthehooksports.com. It's a preview of spring practice. So you bring up a good point. There are politics in spring practice. How much does Tennessee see of Nico? I'm going to put the over-under at 21.5 throws in the orange and white game. And I don't know that the rest of practice is going to be open at all. So I will say big question mark for Tennessee's media. And 21.5 throws will be for public consumption. I'll put the over-under at that. You would take the over-under?
I'd take the under easily. I would take under 12.5. So looking at this, because Nico could always get hurt, so you always got to think about the quarterbacks on the roster in general. I think Jake Merklinger is the story of spring practice. And we need to see what he can do.
I was discussing this with somebody on our Patreon page. I believe it was Steven, and we were going back and forth. And that's why we love for you to have the interaction. It's just $9.98 a month. You win weekly gifts and monthly gifts and get increased content. But would Tennessee be an up-and-coming program if there was no Nico and it was just Jake Merklinger that was stepping into the fold? I think they'd still be an up-and-coming program.
I can't evaluate that because they put so much into Nico. They probably have more weapons around if they didn't spend so much money to get Nico.
Yeah.
But Merklinger, I can't evaluate Merklinger the way I did Nico last year because we haven't really seen Merklinger play in these camp games or bowl, high school bowl games or things like that. So the real story is going to be what can Merklinger do when he steps on campus this in spring ball? Because look, every Tennessee quarterback has gotten hurt the last 2 years at some point. Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker both got hurt each of the last 3 years under Heupel at some point. So Heupel has not yet had a starter have to be pulled from a game because he was hurt, and at some point in the season. So Merklinger's got to be ready to go. And I don't know I have no idea how mobile he is. It doesn't seem like he was much of a mobile quarterback, but
Are you just saying that because he was white?
I know. I'm just assuming that because he was white, so maybe I should back off. But
terrible. Like when people used to call me and they'd say, "This Bob at the Tennessee's recruit there is white or black." Why does it matter? Just ask me if you think he can run or not.
That's like when they say those white players are like they're sneaky fast. That's
sneaky
code
fast. Coach's son, Jim Wright. Okay, if it's Merklinger, I think that Tennessee is still in pretty good shape. But this is a Nico or bust year, right? He's able to take it to another level where if something were to happen to Nico, we have to just greatly adjust the expectations for the season. No matter how good Merklinger is, it's going to change, correct?
Right, but we mostly know what we're going to see from Nico. So I think spring is about finding out who can be the quarterback if something happens. Because if Merklinger is not ready, can Davey Schuler or Gaston Moore shoulder Josh Heupel's the burden? I'm sorry, we saw a lot of Gaston Moore in mop-up duty. That dude can't throw. I'm sorry, he can't. He's more inaccurate than Joe Milton. He missed on 2 easy fades into the end zone in mop-up duty at one point.
So it's over the top mean. It's over the top mean. He doesn't need that.
I mean, his throws are over the top.
A random shot at Kamal Haddon if you can as well. I'm glad Tennessee does, or do they? Is Arian Foster one of those guys that you would just say shut the hell up most of the time? See, does Tennessee have one of those guys? I mean, Peyton's out there a lot, but he doesn't say stupid stuff. Well, another SEC school has somebody that says stupid stuff. We're going to discuss it right after this with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Do you like the visit with Jimmy Hyams each and every Wednesday on Off the Hook Sports? Do you like his coverage? Brought to you in part by our good friend Ray Varner Ford in Clinton.
Welcome to Ray Varner Ford in Clinton, where every turn meets new possibilities and every mile celebrates the cutting-edge innovation within our Ford lineup. Elevate your journey in this new 2023 F-150 4x4 Super Cab, $44,992. A 2023 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $30,952. 2023 F-150 4x4 Super Crew XLT, $54,900. Local you trust, innovation you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Do you feel sad or amused by Johnny Manziel? I kind of feel sad. Caleb, what's the latest thing he said in his very misdirected life as it continues to just kind of stumble along through the ether?
I feel like Johnny Manziel is trying to fake rehab his reputation by doing things that are totally unnecessary. Because, look, I understand. I'm just going to say this from the start. I understand quarterbacks who have had demons. I understand there are quarterbacks who didn't work out. They were dealing with psychological issues, whatever. There's a lot of reasons a quarterback can be a bust in the NFL.
More pressure than any position in sports, and it's not close.
Yes, exactly. I think it's disgraceful, though, when you're a bust because you just didn't care and you took the money and called it a day. And Johnny Manziel and Jamarcus Russell are on my pantheon of disgraceful human beings for that.
Can I explain? And I know the Johnny Manziel story because he was a bigger story than I do Jamarcus Russell. Why there might be a difference between the two. First, can you tell me the latest of what Johnny Manziel said?
Yes, Johnny Manziel decided to take a fake moral stance that's not going to make any waves whatsoever, where he said he's not going to take part in any Heisman Trophy ceremonies whatsoever until Reggie Bush gets his Heisman Trophy back.
Okay, first, well, darn. As a Heisman voter, I can cover that, and I can tell you of all the Heisman winners, he would be about 60th on the list of those that are still living that I would want to visit with. So it wouldn't be a big deal if he weren't at that at all. He can think it's a big deal, but it's not. And Johnny Manziel, I believe, could have been a very good quarterback in the NFL, especially with the way it's going. I believe he could have been on the front end of something special, but he's not. And instead, he decided to just really party his life away once he got the contract. I think it just goes to show you really don't know who a lot of these people are. And I think Texas A&M to some extent allowed this to happen, but I don't believe Johnny Manziel was ever going to put himself in a best position, Caleb, to be an elite NFL quarterback. I just don't believe it's going to happen. I believe you like the money. A couple of million is enough for some people to be happy and think I won life. A couple of million is nothing for Peyton Manning because he wants to be in the Hall of Fame. Those are the difference between the two mindsets, Caleb. And a couple of million was enough for Johnny Manziel to say, hey, everybody, I won life. I am going to now officially enjoy my life. That's what he did.
Yeah, and let's talk about the infrastructure of college football and what I do somewhat blame Texas A&M and Kevin Sumlin, because I do think this. I think because Texas A&M was new to the SEC, they were really worried about getting wrecked coming from the Big 12, and they realized they had this one special talent that could save them from getting wrecked to build the program. So I think they forgave so much more than they should have because of that situation. Like, I think if they had stayed in the Big 12, they probably would have had more discipline for Johnny Manziel. But because of the pressure of coming to the SEC and knowing what they had to do, I think they allowed a lot of stuff to slide. The reason this is so annoying for Johnny Manziel to take this stance, and it's so fake, Johnny Manziel knows that he's not going to be the guy to make a wave on this. So he's just pretending to be the new moral guy. Do I think it's stupid that Reggie Bush lost his Heisman? Yes. No, I don't think he should have won the Heisman that year. Vince Young should have won the Heisman that year.
But let me go ahead and end the Heisman talk. They're still displaying O.J. Simpson's Heisman at Southern California. Period. End of discussion. They can melt Reggie Bush's, as far as I care, as long as they have OJ's up. That is idiotic.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's where I was getting to. Now, I'm not saying Johnny Manziel is the O.J. Simpson of this, but, like, in terms of Heisman winners that could make waves, Johnny Manziel, like you just said, is not in the top 15. If, as a matter of fact, don't you think that you know this? The Heisman ceremony people, because I don't think they include O.J. in anything, they have this kind of integrity thing, even though they voted for a lot of bad people to win the Heisman in the past, but they like kind of stand-up guys to be the representatives, don't they? So don't you think they're secretly like, good, don't come to any of our stuff anymore?
Yeah, I think they're definitely like that, because what are they going to ask him about? They're going to ask him about signing stuff. They're going to ask him about NIL. Listen, the bottom line is if they change the speed limit on I-75 North, and I'm not afraid to tell everybody, I got my first speeding ticket in like 20 years last Friday. If they change the speed limit, they're not going to come back to me and say, here is your $220 back, Caleb. That's not going to happen. You can't retroactively change decisions in this NIL world. I ask you, is there any player that you think a fan base is just really ashamed of, that they just kind of wish that they weren't around? The only one I could come up with, and I don't want this to sound like a shot, because I actually like him as an individual, would be Arian Foster, because I think a good bit of Tennessee's fan base is Christian. They didn't like the fact that he was so open about the atheism. But I think the other thing that really bothered them, some of them, was the Taco Bell thing, which was a lie. To say that he never had the money to go to Taco Bell is just not true, Caleb. It's not.
I think you're right, but Arian Foster did make amends with Tennessee with the Alabama game a couple of years ago.
True.
I think.
How many years ago, just out of curiosity?
2022, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yeah. How was Tennessee doing on the field at that time?
Yeah, you're right. They were balling. That's a good point.
So how do you think former players viewed that?
They were probably annoyed that he waited till then.
You show up when you're doing good? Is that what you do?
That's a fair point. I think I still don't think I don't think LSU fans will ever welcome Jamarcus Russell back. I think he embarrasses them too much.
Okay, so I was going to say that, and this may be a reach. Jamarcus Russell to me was very Manziel-like in that he thought he had won life when he got the first contract, right? But I do think, not knowing the Jamarcus Russell story, I think Manziel is troubled beyond what we know at this point.
Well,
There now is a story about whether or not he came up for money or not. I don't even know.
Oh, no, he faked the whole background story of that So, no, he faked that whole narrative so he could justify how he had all this money to keep himself eligible for the NCAA. Now, Jamarcus Russell, so the problem with Johnny Manziel that's so tricky is that Johnny Manziel took Texas A&M to heights it's never been at before. Whereas Jamarcus Russell is a forgettable throwaway. And it's funny, we bring in Reggie Bush. It's not like other historically USC is running back isn't it? Like they've produced.
Yes.
So Reggie Bush is just another one of the guys, But to be fair, Reggie Bush was the guy that resurrected USC it was a disaster of a program in the 90s. So I'm fine with the idea of him getting his Heisman back if you want to take this stance. I don't think Johnny Manziel's genuine in this, though. I think this is Johnny Manziel trying to go on a character rehabilitation tour to make people like him more.
Completely agree. I'm with Caleb 110%. So is there any player that Tennessee's fan base would just soon not? I mean, you could go Aaron Hernandez at Florida. If somehow Aaron Hernandez went to Miami instead of Florida, I'm sure Florida fans would be okay with that. You could go, there are other guys that are just dastardly.
Kellen Winslow at Miami, since you just named him.
Yeah, Kellen Winslow at Miami. I mean, I don't know.
But wait, we got to be fair. We just said Arian Foster. We cannot put Arian Foster or even Johnny Manziel or even Jamarcus Russell in the same sentence as Aaron Hernandez and Kellen Winslow. We're talking about a rapist and a murderer. OJ's a double murderer. I mean, there's layers of like.
But there are Tennessee players that have gone to do things as bad as Aaron Hernandez. However, there was at least some lack of culpability because listen, drunk driving's your fault. Don't get me wrong, but still, that's not purposely taking someone's life like Aaron Hernandez. Can we agree that there's a difference there?
There's a difference. There's a reason that the courts charge for manslaughter and murder and double murder.
Okay, so I don't want to sound like I'm downplaying Leonard Little's. There was also a situation in which a former Tennessee quarterback, and I don't really want to get into his name, but he had a serious problem with drug issues, and it seemed like it was just a matter of time until he would pass away. And he was incredibly talented. You know who I'm talking about, I'm sure.
That wasn't his fault. That was college football's fault because they got him hooked on those.
That's very fair. So I just don't know if there now, like Jansen Jackson. I mean, he killed a man. So
yes,
he would be in
Tennessee's
the Aaron
never going to
Hernandez.
miss him.
Right, he would be in the Aaron Hernandez category, but I don't think like the average college football fan knows that Jansen Jackson even played at Tennessee, right? So there's not a guy that's tied there. Like if you're USC, you would love, in retrospect, for the Juice to have played at UCLA. I mean, I mean, in retrospect, you don't have to have that damn trophy there all the time that people are looking at going, well, you still got that. And you would love to get rid of Mike Vick if you're at Vautech. I'm not talking about the play on the field, but you'd love to just erase yourself of that memory. Johnny Manziel, too. But here's the thing about Johnny Manziel that's so difficult, Caleb. And I'll just say this and throw it out there. I talked to guys who covered Archie Manning, and they said that Johnny Manziel was the best playmaker since Archie Manning. And since then, they thought he was that great of a playmaker with that little around him. So you're talking about a transcendental, almost a Pete Maravich type aura around him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it was huge. The difference is like Pete Maravich and Archie Manning had personalities, but were also disciplined in their craft, and Johnny Manziel wasn't. But the hard part with Johnny Manziel, and you brought up Michael Vick, where they're different from OJ. One, whatever we want to say about Michael Vick, at least he's remorseful for what he did. He does seem like he's trying to clean up his life and do right. Amen. And OJ does not care that he got away with double murder. I mean, that's, I think, what's still so sick about him is like he does not care. And he's so proud that he got off.
I agree with you. I will never forgive Mike Vick because I'm an animal guy. But
I'm an animal.
But I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm an animal lover,
I'll
too.
tell you about a quick joke I did. They had a silent auction one time, and one of Mike Vick's jerseys was there, and I signed it as PACA, the group that looks out for animal welfare. And I
did not know that. That's really funny. Here's where I wanted to get with Manziel and Mike Vick, though, and it goes back to the other point. Manziel and Mike Vick actually uplifted college football programs they reset expectations for those programs that weren't there before. OJ didn't do that for USC. USC was already great. Another one, a great one, Lawrence Phillips at Nebraska.
Ooh.
He didn't really reset expectations for Nebraska, but Nebraska don't win those two titles without him in the 90s with Tommy Frazier. I mean, he was more valuable than Frazier.
At least I'm nitpicking a little bit on your point, but at least Phillips was kind of an empathetic figure.
You think he just had massive mental issues?
I think he had massive mental issues. That's not to say Hernandez or Jackson didn't, but just in a different way, and they harmed other people. I don't know. Lawrence Phillips, I've always thought, and God rest his soul, I don't want to joke around too much, but if you always imagine playing Lawrence Phillips in backyard football, which he did with a group of guys that were in their teenage years and early 20s, and then Lawrence Phillips gets frustrated because you beat him and he goes and gets his car and tries to run you over in the yard. Isn't that a surreal moment?
Yes. And we also have to point this out. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. And Fred White played Nebraska twice, and he gave his thoughts. And there were rumors galore that Nebraska had a steroid program for players. And doesn't Lawrence Phillips? He exhibited the behavior of somebody that had a roid problem. That's a roid rage, isn't it?
I guess. Psychology degree, or no, you're a psychologist.
So if that's true, and Tom Osborne did know it, is that blood on Osborne's hands?
Caleb joins you each and every weekday at 10 a.m. I just try to keep it in between the rails. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This is awesome. This has been a presentation of Off the